So as they say, if you don't know where you're from, you don't know where you're going. And so with that, you might wonder, like, who was that voice that you heard there? Who was narrating that? Well, that person was none other than Lily Liu. Lily Liu specializes in storytelling for impact. For more than 2 decades, she worked at AARP, most recently serving as AARP's historian and archivist, collecting, preserving, and storytelling about the history of NRTA and AARP. Lily has been a friend. Lily has been one who reminds me of the history and the import of the job of working for you. And it's my honor to introduce Lily Liu. Thank you, Lily. You're welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, how wonderful to see all of you. It's been a while. I've seen some of you, so I just wanted to be able to greet you all. You all were so kind to come up and say hello to me a little while ago. I was going to make a joke and say, I think I sound better on technology than I do in person, but I'm so delighted to be here with all of you. I just want to be able to say thank you because today I have brought with me a PowerPoint that I would like to give to all of you as a gift, because in the video there were images and other things that you might wish to use when you're doing volunteer orientation, having recognition events, so I want to be able to have that for you. It is truly an incredible shared story that we all have. Well, I wanted to congratulate NRTA on its 75th anniversary. What an important milestone, and to be able to be together. I especially want to thank Al and the team, the small but mighty team, for this wonderful invitation. It really means a lot to me. And congratulations to everyone, and thank you, Al, for your awesome, awesome leadership. Yes, he deserves a hand. And I must also thank Mary Beth Dixon for her persistence and her amazing championing of Dr. Andrus. She really embodies that spirit. Thank you for making that video possible. I also must thank all of you, because through the years you have invited me, and thanks to that ability to travel around, I have had such wonderful experiences. I have seen the beauty of America, the goodness of Americans. I'm tearing up because as an immigrant child who is the grateful product of public education, you all have shown me what American spirit is all about. And as I look around the room, I see the friends that have hosted me. There's Scott, veganist of KRTA and AARP Kentucky. How did you ever keep that ice sculpture from not melting all those hours that we were together at the conference? Mr. Milam over there. I think your grandson must be 22 this year, right? Oh, see, I've known him since he was a little boy. Is Angelique here? And Cal RTA, the friends, not here, but the Cal RTA friends are here. All of you have hosted me, and it's been wonderful. I also wanted to include this slide because it is a reminder that when Lily Liu asks you for a photo together, you must say no, because you'll end up in one of her PowerPoints. But I really am grateful for this opportunity to do storytelling, because the most important thing is we have a powerful story to tell. And you will see me zip through some of the slides, but the point is I wanted you all to have these primary sources. If any social studies teachers are here, you know how important they are, because they really supplement the authenticity of our story. When you think about the tools that we have to tell the story of what we do together, it is very important, because the authenticity of origin stories are leveraged by so many companies. Ford, all the companies that have a history, the Marvel comics, we all know why Superman and Spider-Man started. We have a powerful origin story. And so sit back after that lunch, don't fall asleep, and then we'll be able to see our origin story, because what's so interesting is in 1960, Ethel, Percy, Andrus, and other thought leaders around the United States were asked to contribute to this very interesting booklet, 1960s, and her chapter was The Aged and the Retired. And in it, she had the most wonderful look back, about 12 years of when they started NRTA together. NRTA was founded on a shoestring and a prayer. We made no little plans, for in little plans lies no magic to stir one's blood. We made big plans. We aimed high, the title of this session, in hope and work. We counted upon your determination and your visionary spirit and missionary spirit. We did not count in vain. It's a little takeoff on Daniel Burnham, an architect's quote, but she made it even better. And she realized that was why AARP had NRTA as the route, as the model to go by. Now, what's so interesting is that Nancy Lamont, Mrs. Lamont, has already left, but she really carries on that vision because Nancy Lamont has always said, we are not a national organization only, just one building in Washington, D.C. We are nationwide. And you all provided that role model. All the years that people elected at the local level, then up to the state level, and sent representatives like you to the national meetings. They were called areas back then, regions now. But that was that democratic spirit that Dr. Andrus had for NRTA. I've always wondered, as I researched and built up the AARP archives and the NRTA papers, what was it that was the secret sauce? And I decided that today I would wear a pin from many years ago with AARP. It's all about the members. And I realized when I came upon a quote, a poem from a South Dakota. Is the South Dakota contingent here? Yes. Well, let me read it for you, because this is from one of your ancestors. It's titled, Retired Teachers. I'd heard this group had organized. I knew they were about, but what they did on meeting nights, I never had found out. So I joined them one fine evening and on an open invitation to learn some more about them, and I got this education. Next, there came discussions of pensions, plans, and hopes, and other kinds of business that was way beyond my scope. I listened rather vaguely, but when they took a break for lunch, I then and there decided I could learn to like this bunch. Now, if you think about it, any English teachers here, a close reading, a deciphering of this, a deconstruction of this, think of all the wonderful themes in there. Engagement, relevance, and most important, that building of a sense of community. That is what you offer. And that is why NRTA has celebrated its 75th anniversary. Where did that come from? Thank God we had a teacher who was the head of NRTA during the bicentennial. Ms. Mary Mullen from Cal RTA, back then CRTA, decided that all of your states should come up with a collection of essays from the teachers that have been retired. So right now, where's Vermont? There is a book of yours on sale on eBay. Snag it right away, yay! And then for Wyoming, there's a book, and it's so interesting because you all titled it Children, Chalk Dust, Cowboys, A History of Early Wyoming Teachers. But the point is that at that time in 1975, in the AARP collection now of the archives, there is a full set of reminiscences, and that taught me that what you all have been doing all these years is building community and having fellowship. And what's so interesting is all of you really emphasize what Dr. Andrus's vision was when NRTA dues were just $1. She knew even then that it was a lot of money for someone retiring. And she said, why is it worth it? Belong, be strong, you can't do it alone. That's just as true today. So who was this woman that would actually enter into American popular culture? There would be cartoons about her, lauding the fact that here she was at her age, jetting around and making possible all these new benefits and services for older teachers. Well, she was the volunteer, the very first volunteer. She was not an AARP nor NRTA staff member. She never had a paycheck. She was the first national volunteer, the national volunteer president. And because she was also the editor of the publications, the magazines that to today, for example, the AARP magazine still is a bi-monthly magazine, we have a collection of her editor's columns, and those are also on sale on eBay every so often. So if you'd like a copy, snag it if you can. When I looked at the wonderful agenda that Al and his team have put together, all of the topics that you'll be addressing oh, financial wellness, all the caregiving issues, the leadership issues. We find the roots, just like Ms. Lamont said, in the story of NRTA and what your ancestors have done and what you are continuing to do. And that's important because when you think about financial wellness, Dr. Andrus definitely said it was her parents' values, work and save, that were instilled in Dr. Andrus and her older sister, Maud. She also said that her life passion was to become a teacher. And when you think about her signing that application to go to Lewis Institute, we found that in the Illinois Institute of Technology archives. And what was so interesting, as the video said, that school was very seminal in starting a whole new vocational training. They wanted the students to have and learn usefulness. That's such a lost word now, isn't it? And that's why it's so meaningful that years later, when University of Chicago gave Dr. Andrus one of its alumnus awards, it was the Useful Citizen Award. So as the video said, she went on to teach at her alma mater, but like so many of us boomers, her life was a melange of work and having purpose, and so she volunteered in the what we call settlement houses started by social workers. And there are, as I said, primary sources in the file that showed that she was with Jane Addams, the settlement house founder for Hull House. And what's so interesting is now I realize why years later, heading up NRTA, she would write, "Our community is the place where we can be most effective." And these are pictures of the two settlement houses, Chicago Commons and the Hull House that Jane Addams started. But what was so interesting was, like many of us, she had a pivot in her life. Her father became ill, and as a result, the family decided to go back to California, this time to Southern California, where it was warmer. And so caregiving, and it's, her Lewis Institute documented that and said that because of her father's ill health, she gave up a wonderful job in Chicago and had to start all over again. But she was amazing. They arrived in 1910 in Southern California. She first got a job at Manual Arts High School, vocational training. Her generation was realizing that Greek and Latin would no longer be useful for the students. So as a result, she found a job, and then she worked her way up. And what's so lovely is that when she later would have students send pictures of her when she was their teacher, when she had founded NRTA, they would say she was a wonderful teacher. She had actually taught the future governor of California, and that's why the power of NRTA is such that you know the grass tops. AARP has always worked at the grassroots, but you taught Senator X when he was in high school. You taught Mayor Y when he was in elementary school. We should leverage your grass tops connections even more. I think I see Adam back there taking notes already for your advocacy work. But the main thing is that you are part of the community. And as the video said, she became the principal at East Los Angeles High School, remaining there for 28 years. And where's the Oklahoma friends, please? What was so interesting was that at one point, somebody called me and said, "Lily, I'm the Oklahoma State rep for communications, and we had someone come for a driver safety course. He's 103. My first question was not about the history, but did he drive himself safely home? But what was so lovely was that he had been the juvenile delinquency policeman assigned to Lincoln High School and could confirm that Ethel Percy Andrus turned it around because she made the juvenile delinquents better students. He lived to 105. Irvis Lester, I never forgot that wonderful story. He was an Okie, And so, so all of you can help me preserve the NRTA history. And so what she did was she had glee clubs, she had drama clubs, she had all these things so that the students would stay out of trouble. And what's so interesting is, of course, then the graduates in those 28 years included Jeanette Nolan, also Robert Young, Father Knows Best, Marcus Welby, MD. The point was she gave them a craft. She kept them out of trouble with glee club and football and things like this. But the most touching one I had found of the students was Mr. Franklin Alexander. He always said, "I'm a nobody." But he bequeathed to me all of his high school yearbooks, and what he said was, when Dr. Andrus walked into assembly, all the students quieted down. He was a living link to how his principal affected his classes. And then, today is the start of Hispanic Heritage Month. We have Mr. Jose Limon, who was also class of 26. He would become a very famous dance pioneer. And then Sadeo Masuki, who was then become one of the first 442 veterans who was killed during World War II in 1945. But what was so interesting was that all the students realized that when Dr. Andrus arrived, she put up a gate that had the word opportunity. So many of the students said, we didn't know opportunity had red hair, but she gave them opportunity. So 2008, when AARP marked our 50th anniversary, went out there, and I realized, and I hope you will understand how beautiful this quote was, when she was a young teacher in 1916, she had already said the value of the inclusion is we honor everyone. So she was less about the melting pot and more about the salad. Everybody together would be making a better America. And so when you think about, where's New Mexico, please? What's so interesting is when I was able to go and see, oh yes, there's some New Mexico friends, see the Pueblo NRTA members. Why would they come to the biennial convention? They felt included and they felt there was a sense of belonging. And so we could see through the yearbooks, Dr. Andrus saw the changing face of America. And what's so key about that is one of the other famous graduates, Robert Preston, the music man, would say upon her death, send a very important telegram that said, I wish we could all have a high school and a world that was run as well as Dr. Andrus had, because she was his beloved principal. So that was, once again, a primary source that validates our story. And why all that is important is when she founded NRTA and AARP, she understood in segregated America in 1958, when AARP was founded, that we would accept everybody, regardless of sex, color, creed, or previous state or country. The only qualification is by age, which today is full membership at age 50. And then, of course, like all of you, she was invested in herself with lifelong learning and getting a PhD in her 40s. So that's why we say Dr. Andrus. She was not a medical doctor. But once again, another pivot, 28 years into her career as principal, her mother became ill, and she stepped down and retired to take care of her mother. But fortunately, her mother got better. And so we all, as Ms. Lamont had mentioned, know about the chicken coop story. Once again, it is documented in that essay, and I have given a copy of it to NRTA team so that they can scan it and send it to you, because it is full of wisdoms. And what she did was she realized that there was this retired educator reduced to living in a chicken coop. So she got mad and she took action. And what's so interesting is Ohio. Where's Ohio? On your website, you list the founding RTAs. Ohio, California, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania were the first affiliates to join NRTA in 1947. I'm still researching that, but what is so important is, just like Star Trek, Dr. Andrus had a federation model. She was the generation that knew about the League of Nations, the United Nations, joining together for power. And so, all the things that we've done all these years, information, the tabling that you all do, Ms. Lamont mentioned the Social Security, we were tabling 60 years ago in 62, all the different things that even today is so important, the NRTA in the know, emails that come out, that carries on the tradition of information. And what's so interesting is in 1954, Dr. Andrus had done so much through NRTA that Time magazine wrote about it. And many of your RTAs are mentioned in that article for what you were doing at the grassroots level. And so think of all the things that she was able to accomplish. Innovations like a health insurance group plan at affordable price 9 years before Medicare. And then as you travel throughout the United States, in Indiana, there is teacher retirement home. In Denver, there's DESE, or there was DESE. I haven't checked on what their status is. And when I went there to visit AARP's first Latina, Lena Archuleta, board member, she pulled me to the side and said, look at that picture. There was Dr. Andrus at the groundbreaking with a microphone in her hand. Never again the chicken coop. She was working all cylinders to make a better life. And so I would like to mention that there is a Mr. Craig Walker who's in the city where Dr. Andrus founded NRTA, Ojai, California, OJAI. He is now working on a history of the Gray Gables. It was what we today would call an assisted living complex, and he has promised to make copies available when that project is done for all of you. So I wanted to mention that, because she was innovating living arrangements. So when you have colleagues coming to talk to you about livable communities, look at that list of what we today call universal design features: lower sinks, lower things so that if you're in a wheelchair. That was in the early 60s. She already had those ideas, and she had the best name for that type of house, House of Freedom. And so what's so interesting is that when she founded AARP, if you look at the original seal, the key words are purpose, independence, and dignity. And that is the guiding vision for all of us today. And if you look at the very first board of AARP, you will see around the table many of them who are NRTA members. And so I myself remember 4 AARP presidents who were retired educators. Is the Alabama contingent here? Because there is a very important, Clara Verner. She was someone, yes, there's an actual housing complex in Tuscaloosa. She was also on the board. So you could see that Dr. Andrus invited people from all over. So the key point of what she did was she had information and education, service, advocacy, and member benefits and services, which you carry on. So what I will do is I will have all these slides that will give you the different things that you can use when you talk about the things that you're doing now and the things that were done in the past, and how today what you carry on is her legacy. She was the one who created the motto, to serve, not to be served. And that's why when AARP started chapters, like the RTA units, the key thing is you can come together for potluck, you can travel together, but the key thing is to turn your energy into volunteer projects in the community. And that is why so many RTA members have been recipients of the AARP Andrus Award for Community Service. And this is something that's a direct quote from Dr. Andrus about what she values about volunteers. So should you have orientation or recognition events, you can use that. And then, of course, advocacy. She was fighting for the lower cost of prescription drugs all those years ago. She was there when the Older Americans Act was signed in 1965. Her date book said July 14th, be at the White House. She was there for that. And that's why so many people reach so carefully for our materials, because they know that we are non-partisan. They are trusted sources of information. And I want to thank all of you also for all the voter engagement work that you have done and will be doing. You truly show the spirit of what Dr. Andrus inculcated at that school, where she taught the student government leaders to do leadership because they were representing their other fellow students. And you had seen what President Johnson said when she passed away in 1967, that what she did was for future generations, like all of you. You too may not see the end of what we're fighting for, but you're doing it for your children and grandchildren. So the whole point of why we've been so successful for 75 years is that concept of a federation: collective voice, collective purchasing power, so that the benefits that you offer your members are there together, and collective purpose, the ability to do good. Now the baton of leadership has passed to all of you. I would like to quote what Dr. Andrus said in a senior's yearbook when that senior, Valeska, I don't even know her last name, was graduating. She ended it just like a teacher would. We dare you to disappoint us or our hopes for you. I put that challenge out to all of you, because it is now up to all of you to carry on her vision that older persons are indeed our nation's richest and most valuable resource. And so today, as our FREA friends open the door of opportunity to the next 25 years, Ann Fagan, thank you very much for having invited me that time, I would like to end with my favorite quote from Dr. Andrus's writings. It has been wisely said that whatever many may say about the future, it is ours. Not only that it may happen to us, but it is in part made by us. I look forward to the history that every one of you is going to make in the next 25 years. Thank you so much for this honor of being with all of you.